Hello, laba diena visiems. Here is the webinar Live Administrative Forms and Project Outline. The webinar will be in English, but I'll start with a short presentation in Lithuanian, as this webinar is mainly devoted to Lithuanian live applicants. Sveiki visi dar kartą. Aš esu Aušra Šmitienė, atstovaujanti projektą Live gebėjimų stiprinimas Lietuvoje. Malonu, kad stebite mūsų internetinį seminarą. Visi, kurie stebite jį gyvai, prašome užduoti klausimus skiltyje questions ir seminaro pabaigoje bus juos atsakoma. Seminaras planuoja trukti tarp 1,5 valandos ir 2. O skiltyje chat rasite keletą techninių klausimų. Taip pat galite toje skiltyje rašyti žinutes visiems, tame tarpe ir mums, atsakingiams už techninį seminaro organizavimą. And now I'd like to present Henrik Toremark, who is the speaker of the webinar. So please, Henrik, start the webinar.
Yes, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that you hear me well. I guess that many of you that are participating today have participated in the 2 previous webinars that we have held, so you're at least acquainted with me over the link. Today, we will take the 3rd step in our live application, and we will look into the A forms, the administrative forms, and the B forms, the complicated forms of a live application. We will try to, or I will try to hold my monologue with the slides for about 1 hour and 30 minutes. And after that, I will answer your questions. So please, as soon as you have any questions, write them down in the on your right side. There is a possibility to write down questions, and I will try to answer them during the course of the seminar. In any case, we will be going for about in total 2 hours. So, first of all, in front of you, you can see a few of the questions that we received since the last webinar. Well, the first question is about the payments, which we took up briefly in the F forms, the first presentation that I held. When do we get the money basically in the project if it's approved? And if it is approved, and if it is a usual project, the usual project has a duration of between 2 and 4 years, and the EU contribution of between 300,000 up to 4 million euros, then you can expect upon signing the grant agreement, the contract of the project, you will receive about 30% of the total contribution in the middle of the project, or just after half of the project is implemented, another 40% of the total EU contribution. And then finally, when you're handing in the final report, or at least within 3 months after you hand in the final report, you will get the balance payment. So you need to be aware of that. You will have to, well, the European Union will owe you some money during the course of the project. You will have to use your own money, and you will not get the full amount before you actually pay for things. Second question is it negative to use less characters than is possible as of the limitation? I would say that less is more, always, whatever you write. It is good if you can keep as short and concise as possible, but still answer the question in a comprehensive and clear way. The number of characters does not matter. I think any evaluator that gets 2 or 3 or 4 hours with your application will be happy to see less rather than more text. So keep it short and concise. That is absolutely possible and absolutely necessary. And what concerns the tables and pictures, those are not included in the limit of characters. They are uploaded as an attachment on top of the text. So of course you can squeeze some text in there too. But as we said from the beginning in the seminars, if there is something that you think you can illustrate in a figure rather than in text, or if you want to attach a figure where you explain a process, for example, and then you can briefly explain it afterwards. One picture usually says more than 1,000 words, and it is true also for live application. One tricky question that we got is, what is the difference between stakeholder and target audience? And we'll speak a bit more about the stakeholders and target audience today under Form B4. But I can say right away, because this is a quite good elementary knowledge to have, we usually consider the stakeholders directly or indirectly participating in a project, which could be authorities or legislative organs of any kind that are providing the rules of the game or the rules of the project. For example, that they are providing the permits or any kind of authorizations that you need to carry out the project. They would be rather indirectly participating, but they still have a role, or they still have a role to successful implementation of the project. But it could also be a local environmental NGO, a very small group of a couple of people that are protecting a beach or that are protecting their neighborhood. These kind of groups could cause you lots of difficulties if they are not included or consulted in the project in an appropriate way. So those are stakeholders, organizations that could influence the project both positively and negatively. The target audience is more your victims of transferability and replication, as well as communication and dissemination of the results. Those are usually external organizations, and that means external organizations and individuals that are not part of the consortium that could or should have an interest or a benefit from or gain something from the project. This could be, for example, municipalities in other parts of Europe that could replicate or copy your solutions or make them better even, or it could be the local citizens that are living around the area of your actions, and that will be positively or negatively, hopefully not impacted in any way. Hope this is clear. As I said, we'll come back to it later on. So today we'll take a deeper look into the technical part, and in particular the B forms. There are 6 forms that perhaps require the most thought in the application. First of all, it is a summary description of the project. This is actually more than a summary. This is where you explain your the logical setup in your project. So this is a very important part. It is the general character of the project. This is where you explain the environmental project that you're targeting. We have been speaking about this before. Very important, as well as if we are speaking about a project in environmental resource efficiency, your pilot or demonstration ambition in the project. The EU added value and socioeconomic effects is one part that is very important for the European Union. How do you contribute something larger than just the project that you're carrying out in your action area? Stakeholders involved and target audiences. We have already said something briefly about this, but this is where you explain who participates in the project and how. B5 is expected constraints and risks related to the project implementation and mitigation strategy. Your risk management table, and especially your strategy to mitigate the risks, also a very important part for the evaluation, and this is something that should not be taken light upon. This requires a real analysis. And then finally, the continuation and the long-term sustainability of the project's results after the LIFE program stops financing your project. Will the results remain? This is also something that is very important to the European Union. And today I'll give you some tips and tricks on how to structure these different parts in a good way. As always, every project is unique. So, well, the recommendations have to be quite general, but still, I think, useful. We go further, and first of all, I just want to come back to something that we took up in the second webinar. the questions that every partner should be able to provide a clear description and motivation to. First of all, it is the what, how, where, when, and why. Those are the questions that are answering C, basically the description of the different actions in the project. But we also had questions 6 to 12. And those questions are more focused on the B forms, or that they will give you, if you're the coordinator, they will give you useful information to put together the B forms. So as usually, you want to get a lot of input, as I said from the beginning. You want to collect as much input as possible from the partners so that you can put everything together and write something nice and strikingly motivating in the end. So these 6 questions or 7 questions even are perhaps just they're just the start, and I think that you can fill up with a lot of other questions, but usually if you have a partnership, they're not willing to answer, or they don't feel that they have the time to answer too many questions. So those 7 are quite central to write good B forms, I believe. When you have answered those, it is important to fill out the logical structure of the project. We have been putting very much emphasis on this too. I'll repeat it shortly so that we don't forget what we're talking about. First of all, identify the targeted environmental problem. This is, as we said, one of the cornerstones of a LIFE project, as well as the LIFE program in large. You need to link, or the targeted environmental problem needs to be linked to the thematic priority in the sub-programs of LIFE. The overall objective of the project needs to be linked somehow back to the thematic priority and the targeted environmental problem. We need to somehow abolish or reduce the environmental problem that we have been able to identify. And then we split that into smaller priorities, the specific objectives, where we can be a bit more specific of what we want to achieve, how we want to, basically what we want to achieve, first of all, in terms of mitigating the environmental problem. Project results, there could be an overall project result, but the more important thing is to have both quantified achievements as well as tangible output products for the whole projects. Those should be different from the objective, and we'll soon speak a bit more about that. The project results, in particular the outputs, need to be linked to the project performance indicators, which you find in the project performance indicator table, which is part of the application package that you can download from LIFE's homepage. It is important that, of course, that the project results are quite much interlinked with the performance indicators. Then, of course, you can add more project results, but the most important project results should be in line with the project performance indicators. Then you will have to set out the methodology, the actions and means to achieve your project results. On the way, you need output products for each of the actions. So every action needs to have deliverables in order to make the project somehow measurable or possible to follow up the progress, as well as mainly the progress. You need to set up milestones. Milestones is different phases of the project, and this is mainly for your case officer or project officer in Brussels to be able to follow that you're doing what you say that you're doing in your project during the implementation. And finally, to ensure transferability and replication of the results and the specific actions, you need to identify target groups. And the target groups include both stakeholders and target audiences. I hope that many of you have been able to look into this more since the last seminar. Probably you are already quite far ahead in this. And this is an internal document where when you have come somewhere, this should probably look something like this. This is an example of the of the example project that we have been speaking about throughout the webinars. Moving this or using this table, you will be able to fill out B1, which is a summary description of the project. This B form, B1, you will be able to describe it in a very clear and concise way if you already know what you're going to write here. So first of all, the project objectives. If you have a table, then you will know the project objectives already. In the live program, you need to describe the project objectives in priority order. So you bring up the most important first. You should always keep in mind, and I continue emphasizing this, that it has to be clear, realistic, and linked to the environmental problem. And they should be development of innovative policy approaches, technologies, methodologies, or instruments, or contribution to knowledge base and development. And in fact, it's quite good to have both of these. As you can see, in this example project, we have both of these two parts, both technology development part, as well as contribution to the knowledge base part, where we basically educate people on the new technology and the new method. I think this is quite straightforward. Then you will need to describe the actions and means involved. Here you should only explain the main actions. And you should, of course, explain them quite generally. This is something that the evaluator uses to get an idea of how the project is built up as a start of his evaluation. And if he's interested in any details, he will be able to go into the C forms and look into exactly what you want to do. So this should be a quite overall, like the key features of the different actions. And you should not forget to include all actions, including the preparatory actions, the monitoring, and the communication and dissemination of results, because they are for the evaluator, this is equally important, of course. Then in number 3, you are expected to explain the expected results. As I have already emphasized, it is important that the expected results are linked to the environmental problems and thus to the key performance indicators. And also, of course, that there is a logical flow, as you can see above. It is important that you, again, keep in mind that there needs to be both output products, actually the deliverables, something that you deliver from the whole project, something very tangible, something that you can send to your project officer in Brussels if the project is approved, as well as quantified achievements. This is more what Brussels will brag over the project that they have financed afterwards. They can say that, for example, we were able to reduce CO2 emissions by 15 tons through doing this project, and then they group all the projects that they have together, and suddenly they have 15 million tons of CO2 emission reductions from all their projects, and this would be something that they can brag about. But the output product is important for you because that's what they really measure the progress of the project on. I would say, or I usually try to put in the expected results already here, a brief explanation of how the monitoring of project impacts and progress is put, as well as how you intend that the results stay sustainable, that the results will last also after the project. It's quite important in the evaluation forms to bring up, especially the sustainability of the results, and it's quite useful to give the evaluator an idea already here, if you have any space for it. You cannot use too many characters for this part. we will go further into the rest of B1. If you have opened B1 already, you will see that there are two parts which covers climate and biodiversity. Is your project climate related and is it biodiversity related? And then you're able to tick a box if you think your project is climate or biodiversity related, and then you'll have to explain why so. These two are, well, they open for quite some creativity, I would say, in terms of what's climate related and what's biodiversity related. It's not totally important to be both climate and biodiversity related for the evaluation. There are many projects that are passed, they're approved, also without being climate or biodiversity related. But on the other hand, this provides a good chance to add a few extra points to your evaluation. It is mainly in the evaluation criteria 5, EU added value, multi-purpose, synergies and integration, that you could get a few extra points. If you are, for example, in a beautiful way explaining how your climate-related project also contributes to biodiversity, you might get a little remark that you have a multi-purpose delivery mechanism included in your project, and that will give maybe 2 extra points. So not a bad thing to invest some time into looking into, but what are then the definitions of a climate and biodiversity related project? Climate related projects need to show that the main actions of the projects are used to reduce the vulnerability of both human and natural ecosystems against actual or expected problems, basically. So as you see, this is very broad. Usually, one example of what we usually put in there is if the project has any ambitions of increasing energy efficiency in any way, taking care of, for example, if you have wood waste from your project and you start selling that to your local district heating station, for example, that could imply some energy efficiency potential, some transfer to alternative fuels, and thus a CO2 reduction component. In biodiversity is a bit more complex, or actually it's less complex because EU has a biodiversity strategy document that you can find under this link. If you see that your actions are in line with any of the objectives of this strategy, you will be able to explain this and get a few extra points. So this is not the most important part of the application, but still a good way to get some extra points, especially if you have someone who really knows, for example, biodiversity issues at your organizations. They're usually quite good at being creative in this field. Project topics is the last one. You can choose maximally 2 project topics, thematic priorities, and you need to look into the application guide again on page 21 to 28. This is also one of the cornerstones to make sure that your project fits to the LIFE program. It provides, well, far better chances to get the project approved. If you look into the evaluation table, you will see that actually this is a part here, the criteria number 4. I don't know if you can see, contribution to the project topics. You can get a maximum of 10 points out of 100, which is not too much, and there is no minimal score. So it's actually possible to present a really good project that does not fit into the project topics, to the thematic priorities, and still get it approved. But well, you can count yourself on the chances by looking into the award criteria, and we'll do that a little bit later too, together. But this shouldn't be too complicated. Basically, look what they have been writing and then see how much your project is contributing to that. We will go further to something that could be more complex, but even more important to do right. Form B2 is the general character of the project. It involves to explain the environmental project, the environmental problem that you are trying to address, as well as, at least in the case of environmental resource efficiency, the pilot or demonstration character of the project. In order to understand the whole project, the evaluator will take a quite deep look into the environmental project and how you describe that. Therefore, you need to be as thorough as possible to explain the pre-project context, what has happened before the project will be started, basically. What is going wrong, which kind of ecosystems are damaged or vulnerable to the threat that we are addressing. Have there been any relevant research, any pilots in the action area or in other action areas in similar contexts in Europe? Will you carry out the actions, no matter if you get life funding or not? This can be quite important too. Do you have already the necessary permits or the authorizations from authorities to carry out the measures? Have you already carried out consultations with local NGOs? For example, these are questions that you should answer so that the evaluator gets a clear idea. What is the problem already today? Is it a problem that is extensive in the European Union? Is there similar projects somewhere else? Has it been thoroughly investigated? Because you need to have a very thorough investigation in order to motivate the different measures that you plan to apply on this action area. Can you find the context within national or regional or local even strategies, guidelines, best practices in order to connect it to something bigger? If you can show that you have a connection, if this is an environmental problem that occurs in many places, then there will most likely be a national strategy to cope with this environmental problem. And if you show that your measures are in line with the strategy or the best practices that have already been developed for the country or for the European Union, you have far better chances to get a good score in B2, not in B2 in particular, but in the technical evaluation of the project. So be sure to explain how the issue does hurt and focus both on the specific context. That's the most important. You go into detail and you try to quantify as much as possible how large areas, for example, are experiencing this environmental problem. Is there enough baseline data to show that this is really a problem? Present as much as you have. If you cannot fit it into the text, you can always use some figures and pictures that you're uploading. And then, of course, emphasize whether this problem has any transnational character and what you're planning to do. Oh, not what you're planning to do about it, only if it has a transnational character. No questions yet, I see. Excuse me, we are continuing. And we will get over to the other part of B2, which is a little bit different for different sub-programs. And we will focus both on environment and nature today. And I will start with speaking a bit more about environment and resource efficiency to provide you with an understanding of how the European Union compare different project maturities, basically. So if we are looking into an environmental and resource efficiency project, as well as partly in nature too, the European Union will look for which maturity the technology that you're focusing your project on has. And they are using technology readiness levels to measure maturity of different technologies. And they do this throughout all the different EU-funded programs, so this is quite useful to keep in mind. And this is also a way to differentiate your project, or to motivate that your project fits into life and not into Horizon 2020 program. For example, the Horizon 2020 program are financing projects that are on the technology readiness levels of 3 up to 5, usually, not always, but usually. And life is looking for more mature technologies. I would say that life is financing technologies that are on large scale prototype level, basically technology readiness level 5 up to readiness level 8, which is first kind of a commercial system, which is close to the market project basically. So anything in between will fit, and you will need to look into your technology or your solution that you want to present in the life project, and see where the solution is located in the scale. It's always good to refer back to the technology readiness levels, because this is something that, but this gives a possibility for the European Union to compare your project to other projects, and it will help them. So keeping this in mind, in the general character of the project, the second question, we need to outline the whys of the project in particular, and we need to provide the evidence for what is a pilot now or what is a demonstration. So we will start with environmental and resource efficiency. As I said, there are two different characters of a project that the European Union approves, or the LIFE program approves. It's first of all pilot projects. Every pilot project tests an approach, a technology, or a method that has never been applied or tested before or elsewhere. And this, you have to be able to show that this technology offers at least potential environmental and climate advantages compared to the current best practice in the field or the state of the art. So this has a lower technology readiness level, 5 to 6 probably, maybe 7. But they do also finance demonstration projects, and those are the most common projects, I believe, within environment at least. And they look into actions, methodologies, and approaches, new or unknown in the specific context, that could be applied elsewhere under similar circumstances. So this is the next stage from pilot. If someone has carried out the pilot within an area, and you want to either upscale this pilot or apply this pilot in a new setting, this would be considered a demonstration project. So for example, if someone has looked into, we can take an easy example, electric car sharing in the Netherlands. It's already quite common. And you want to apply a similar concept on a smaller city, a city of the same scale, but now in another geographical context in Lithuania. Then you apply the pilot project from the Netherlands, and you use a similar methodology and you apply it in Lithuania. This would be considered a demonstration project. And the more important thing within this topic is to motivate either the pilot character or the demonstration character of the project. And to do so, you have to, of course, explain the state of the art. What is there today? How do people move around in this small city in Lithuania, for example? They are most likely using their own cars, diesel or petrol cars. And there is no charging stations, which makes it hard to have an electric car, even if you would like to privately. Also, the electric cars are expensive. and so on and so on. Then you have to explain the TRL, we usually call it, the technological readiness level, which is which is how mature the technology, in this case, the electric cars are, and especially maybe the sharing methodology. It's perhaps not so technologically mature yet. The charging solutions work, but perhaps not the sharing. And you will describe this, but you will also always have to refer back to research studies, pilots that have been carried out either in Lithuania or abroad, as much as you can. This is very similar to an academic text, I would say, that you're using as much references as possible, and you're arguing based on what other studies and other pilots have concluded. So rather than writing something subjectively, you need to keep as objective as possible, and try to argue your way up to why the solution is a potentially good project in your area. And then, of course, again, the LIFE program puts lots of effort on context, and usually we're looking into geographical context, which will be to apply a Dutch tested solution or Dutch piloted solution in Lithuania as a demonstration. But it could also be another ecological solution or a socioeconomic context. For example, it could be that you have tested electric car sharing in the center of Vilnius, where there are most likely quite wealthy people living, but you want to apply this to a new socioeconomic context, so you bring it out to the suburbs, and you test it in one suburb, for example. That would be another socioeconomic context, which would most certainly pose different challenges and opportunities in different terms. Nature, the subprogram on nature looks a little bit different. This is here you still need to, of course, describe the state of the art, but there is a larger emphasis on best practices to justify the compliance with the different selection criteria that the LIFE program puts up. So for nature, you could still carry out pilot and demonstration projects, but the absolutely most common projects are best practice projects. Is basically to bring techniques and methods that have been successfully applied somewhere else into a new area. So this is I would say, a higher technology readiness level. It could be, for example, the LIFE program works a lot with establishing wetlands in different countries. And there are, in the Netherlands, there are many successful examples of this, and they have developed cost-effective and very well-functioning methods to establish new wetlands. And if you would bring the exact same solution without any actual development to Lithuania and establish a very similar wetland, this would be considered a best practice project. And to be eligible in the LIFE program, this still needs to comply with the EU Birds and Habitats Directive, if it's within nature. So if you're writing it within nature, it needs to comply with the EU Birds Habitats Directive, or if you're writing it within the biodiversity sub-program, you will have to look into the EU Biodiversity Strategy to 2020. It's a document that I have copied a bit out of on the next page with a link, so you can look into. So if you're writing biodiversity or nature, it also needs to have, in order to get a good evaluation point, clear linkage to EU strategy or legislation. Also, in the case of nature, you have to ensure that 25% or more of the budget of the project, the total project budget, is allocated for concrete conservation actions, conserving nature. For example, by establishing a wetland. I see that we have gotten one question. I will answer all questions afterwards, I think. It's usually easier. Get a good overview. Yeah, we will go further into B3. B3 is a quite complicated form. It's called EU added value and socioeconomic effects. I'll actually open it to get the overview. There are a number of questions. Indeed, it's 4 questions, which we will look into a little bit each and every of them. I realize now that replicability and transferability comes first, although it's actually the second question. But the first question is EU added value of the project and its actions. Quite a broad topic, I would say. Replication and transferability, we'll talk about that just now. The socioeconomic effects of the project, and finally the efforts for reducing project's carbon footprint. We were speaking more about replication and transferability in our last webinar, but I was asked to just mention it briefly today as well, just to put it into context. I wanted to say a few words, first of all, because I know that there's usually questions, or there is at least, it's not entirely clear what the difference is between replicability and transferability versus sustainability. And sustainability of the project and its results is defined as the capacity to maintain the results in the relevant context after the LIFE program stops financing it. So basically, you're building something, and how do you ensure that this building stays in the right place, or you're establishing a wetland? How do you make sure that someone comes there and actually maintain the wetland also after the LIFE project is finished? Whereas transferability and replication takes a next step. It is the tangible use of the solution and the multiplication, as the European Union likes to use the word, into other contexts. It could be other sectors or other countries, for example. But in any case, when it comes to replication and transferability, you have to first of all consider, does anyone else have the same environmental problem? And the environmental problem you should by now have described in form B2. So you will probably have a very good and broad research background to whoever might have the same environmental problem. And you will also probably know if they have tried to mitigate the problem in any way, if there are any solutions, either on pilot scale or as best practices available. And you need to understand the technology that you are proposing, or the methodology that you're proposing. Is this methodology applicable to the other cases in the other sectors, the other geographical context, or the other sectors around? And then you need to make a measurement if this goes for only the local level, or on the national level, or an EU-wide level. This will make you being able to make an estimation of the replication potential. I would say that it's important that the replication potential is quite large on the EU-wide scale to be able to get a good score for this part in the evaluation. After that, you need to identify the target groups, and again, those include both stakeholders and target audience. Usually, or like in any application to the European Union, it is the best is to categorize everything, to make bullet points, and we will do that also here. Some bullet points could be the broad public, citizens, which would be target audience, stakeholders and NGOs, which would be stakeholders, of course, experts in the field, which would be stakeholders too, or even subcontractors, you could imagine. It could be similar organizations to yours. If you are a municipality or a regional authority, you should keep in mind the target groups could be your neighboring municipality or neighboring regional authority, as well as other sectors. If you're working with wastewater treatment, you need to keep in mind that the sludge ideally is distributed on fields, and therefore you should keep in mind that the agricultural sector, as well as the food production sector, could be interested in the project too. So yeah, look outside your own sector, basically, and your own region or municipality to identify the target groups. And then by matching the replication potential to the target groups, you will be able to identify appropriate means to make, first of all, dissemination, basically spread the information, spread the word of what you're doing, and then as well to facilitate the take-up of your solution to make other parties interested and try the same thing. And as we discussed more in detail in the last webinar, which is also available online, you can look into that. Like a strategy document or workshop is not sufficient. You need to actively make other organizations or the target groups actively participate in your project in some way to in a credible way, promote the take-up of your solution. So I think this is a good introduction to replication and transferability. We will basically jump one step back and look into the first question, EU added value of the project and its actions. Sorry, I have not been speaking this much for about a month. Look in my throat. So, EU added value. If you read the application guide, which you should always do when you're writing your application, it is very explicitly set out that B3, and in particular the first question, is used to assess criteria 3, 5, and 7, and that is the award criteria, which you find in the evaluation guide. So, as you see, there are many points at stake in these award criteria, and therefore you need to invest sufficient time into answering this question. The basic point of what they ask is what are the changes achieved, and what is the deal for the European Union with these changes. Examples that you should lift, if to keep it general, first of all, with the advantages for the European Union, could be, first of all, of course, the contributions to the specific objectives of the LIFE regulation. I will show these on the next slide. The LIFE regulation is the EU document that guides the LIFE program. This differs at least partly from the thematic priorities of the LIFE program. This is a bit complex. But so under B3, you should not explain why your project fits into the LIFE program, but rather why it fits into the LIFE regulation. It could be contributions to policy implementation, basically implementation of EU directives and regulations or national laws, as well as how to update and make them better. Also, your project could possibly prepare for new legislation that you see is necessary or that you see will be available in a specific field within a couple of years. You know yourself that the European Union are pushing lots of different processes, for example, phosphorus recovery on the EU level. The law is already available in Germany, for example, but then many other countries in the European Union expect that, that there will come a directive and therefore a law on the national level in their countries too, so they can prepare for new legislation. And if you can show that your project contributes to this new legislation, or how to construct the new legislation, this would be a clear advantage. Also, behavioral changes is always welcome. How do we make EU citizens more environmentally aware, or how do we make them use environmentally friendly solutions to a larger extent? One example could be, does your project create incentives to sort out waste into plastic and paper, and biological waste and so on? Or does your project contribute to making people use electric cars to a larger extent? This would be things that you can bring in here. You see, it's quite general behavioral change patterns. And also, as there is a quite large focus on close-to-market projects, new products on the market that could have a positive environmental impact are something that you should describe under this topic. As I said from the beginning, this question is connected closely to the award criteria 3, 5, and 7. And I've tried to, I will tell you a bit more about what these different award criteria mean. So first of all, the Fit to Life regulation rather than life program. The specific objectives of the life regulation, or at least the most relevant objectives, are to promote and protect biodiversity and improve resource and energy efficiency. So again, the more overall patterns, if you can show that you're, if you have ticked the box that biodiversity is something that your project supports, you could also mention it here. Try to not make it look like that you're repeating the information, but you can say that since our project is supporting biodiversity, which is described under B1 or Form B1, we can see that our project is in line with the life regulation. And the same is if your project contributes to energy efficiency, then you can formulate it as since our project is climate related and contributing to energy efficiency as is described under the tick box climate under Form B1, our project should be in line with the life regulation, basically. So keep it quite general, but it's still important to underline. Here is actually on the next slide, 69X. You can see the different